I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. The Department of Justice is calling Tucker Carlson out for releasing selectively edited footage on the propaganda network known as Fox. The Department of Justice has made a filing in federal court in Washington, D.C. in the ongoing seditious conspiracy case against the terrorist group known as the Proud Boys, because what happened was, in that case, one of the Proud Boys, Dominic Pezzola, filed a motion to dismiss, citing Tucker Carlson's selectively edited video footage, which shows Pezzola near the QAnon shaman Jacob Chansley, and Pezzola argues this footage should have been turned over to me. This is exculpatory evidence, and thus there was a Brady violation. Dismiss my case. A Brady violation is when the Department of Justice intentionally suppresses exculpatory evidence that would otherwise show or could tend to show the innocence of a criminal defendant. Well, in this filing by the Department of Justice, they said, absolutely not. The selectively edited footage by Tucker Carlson is not exculpatory. It's just selectively edited footage. If you look at the full context of what took place, which, by the way, you have access to, Dominic Pezzola, as does all the January 6th insurrectionists who are going to trial, it is inculpatory. In other words, it tends to show that you are more guilty, not exculpatory, showing that you are not guilty. It's showing that you are guilty. And so the Department of Justice in this filing is making 2 points. First, we turned over these records to you. I know that Tucker Carlson's trying to act like this was some bombshell, that he got access to this information, but the January 6th insurrectionists who are on trial get access through a secured server to this information. Their lawyers get access to it. So you've had this video footage. Tucker Carlson didn't break anything. We just had a process through federal courts whereby lawyers could access certain footage so that it wouldn't get into the wrong hands, a la Tucker Carlson's deal with Kevin McCarthy. And then in any event, it is not exculpatory. Tucker Carlson showed the footage of Jacob Chansley between the hours of 2:56 p.m. to 3 p.m., but he does not show what took place at 2:09 p.m. to 2:56 p.m. He just doesn't talk about that at all. And during that period, you can see the violence that was engaged in, not just by Jacob Chansley, who, by the way, pled guilty to the conduct that was on tape, that Chansley had access to, that Tucker selectively edited out, and Dominic Pezzola. It showed your culpability here too. It shows your guilt. So this is complete and utter nonsense. And the Department of Justice is also, telling the federal judge, look, it's basically a frivolous filing. Like, go through your discovery, go through the documents we turned over, go through the video surveillance footage. You have this information, and shame on Tucker Carlson for selectively editing this footage. Let me just read for you from the filing so you can see it for yourself what the Department of Justice is saying here. And just so, by the way, this seditious conspiracy case against the Proud Boys has been going on for a long time. There's been a lot of delays. There is a temporary delay right now in that some confidential information may have been inadvertently turned over. So it's just taken a very, very, very long time, but that case will likely be resuming soon. But if you're wondering what's going on with that Proud Boy trial, still taking place. That's the one with Pezzola, who filed this motion, and a bunch of other terrorist Proud Boys like Ethan Nordian and Biggs and others. Government's opposition to defendant Pezzola's motion for dismissal and or mistrial. This is what the DOJ says. In his filing, defendant Pezzola moves the court to dismiss this case against him due to recent revelations on the Tucker Carlson show that purportedly prove that Congress overreacted when members of a mob that had overrun officers, broken windows and doors, and was roaming freely throughout the Capitol building began pounding on the door of the House of Representatives. From there, defendant Pezzola asserts that the case against him must be dismissed because the prosecution has been monitoring attorney-client communications of defendants. Once tethered to the facts and reality, defendant Pezzola's arguments quickly unravel. First, all the footage of Jacob Chansley, who's the QAnon shaman, that aired on Tucker Carlson earlier this week has been produced to these defendants in discovery. Second, there has been overwhelming trial evidence of the dangerous riot at the Capitol, which was brought about through the actions of Dominic Pezzola, his co-defendants, and others. And so let's just go into the sections that talk about this. A, the government has produced the video shown on Tucker Carlson to these defendants in discovery. According to public reporting in or around February 2023, the Speaker of the House of Representatives granted television host Tucker Carlson access to a wide range of U.S. Capitol surveillance footage related to the events of January 6, 2021. Beginning on Monday, March 6th, Carlson's show began airing portions of the footage. Based on what was shown on television, Pezzola now asserts that 1, the government withheld certain footage of rioter Jacob Chansley, who pled guilty in his case, and 2, the footage was exculpatory to Pezzola, creating a Brady violation. And you know what a Brady violation is now from the beginning of the video, which would mean that the government intentionally suppressed evidence that could show Chansley was innocent. And here the government says both claims are false. The videos were produced in discovery. Pezzola's motion describes, quote, shocking footage of Chansley, quote, walking calmly through the halls of the Capitol with 2 police officers who purportedly, quote, escort Chansley and apparently other protesters into the Senate chamber. Pezzola quotes Chansley's former attorney for the proposition that the government, quote, withheld this footage from discovery in Chansley's and Pezzola's case. The footage, this is what the government says, the footage is not shocking, and it was not withheld from Pezzola or Chansley in any material respect for that matter. In other words, they just lie over and over again. The government turned over all of this footage to them in their cases. The government goes on to say on page 3, the footage in question comes from the Capitol video surveillance footage, commonly referred to as CCTV, closed-circuit television. The court will be familiar with the numerous CCTV clips that have been introduced as exhibits during this trial. The CCTV footage is core evidence in nearly every January 6 case, and it was produced en masse, labeled by camera number and by time, to all defense counsel in all cases. With the exception of one CCTV camera where said footage totaled approximately 10 seconds and implicated an evacuation route, all of the footage played on television was disclosed to defendant Pezzola and defendant Chansley by September 24th, 2021. The final 10 seconds of footage was produced in global discovery to all defense counsel on January 23rd, 2023. Pezzola's Brady claim therefore fails at the threshold because nothing has been suppressed. Look, folks, in other words, you have all these MAGA Republicans, you've got all of these, January 6th insurrectionists saying, we never got it. Just a lie, because they lie about everything. I mean, here the Department of Justice saying, you have it, you turned it over. It's in a court filing. You have the records. You have all of this stuff already. It's not a Brady violation. The Department of Justice goes on to say, while discovery in this case is voluminous, the government has provided defense counsel with the necessary tools to readily identify relevant cameras within the CCTV to determine whether footage was produced or not. Accordingly, the volume of discovery does not excuse defense counsel from making reasonable efforts to ascertain whether an item has been produced before making representations about what was and what was not produced, let alone before filing inaccurate and inflammatory allegations of discovery failures. So in other words, the Department of Justice is calling them out, saying, look, you're making these inflammatory allegations that we did not turn it over. Yeah, it may have been a lot of video footage, but you're a lawyer. Watch the video footage before just citing Tucker Carlson and claiming that you don't have the footage that you have. Then it goes on to say, here's section 2, where the Department of Justice is like, we don't even need to address this because there's no Brady violation because nothing was suppressed. We turned it over to you. You have it. However, we want to address what Tucker Carlson did for the record. And this is what the DOJ says. Pezzola's possession of the video is dispositive of his Brady claim. Nonetheless, the record should be clear that the videos in question are not exculpatory of Pezzola or any other participant in the siege of the Capitol on January 6, 2021. In fact, the video of Chansley's movements throughout his time in the Capitol are highly inculpatory of Pezzola, Chansley, and other rioters captured on them. Meaning, by inculpatory, meaning it shows how guilty they are. Pezzola's argument seems to be that the snippets of Chansley's movements that were televised by Tucker Carlson established that there was no emergency necessitating the suspension of proceedings. The televised footage lacks the context of what occurred before and after the footage. Chansley entered the building as part of a violent crowd that gained access as a result of Pezzola's destruction of a window, and he traveled with Pezzola during the initial breach. And just as defendant Biggs has recounted in a recorded statement after January 6, 2021, by the time Pezzola forcibly breached the Capitol and Chansley rode his coattails, the mob, through the sheer force of its size and violence of those within it, had wrested control of portions of the Capitol grounds and the Capitol itself from a vastly outnumbered U.S. Capitol Police force. Biggs stated, for example, in part, when you're holding a position like a fort and you're being overrun, if there's 3 of you or 4 of you and you're being outnumbered 100 to 1, are you going to sit there and just go, I'm holding the door? No, you're just going to get your ass beat. That's already gone if that many people show up to your house. There's nothing you can do about it. Biggs later continued, quote, you're going to stand up, tens of thousands of people storming that. No, that's stupid. You step aside. That puts less chance of anyone getting hurt or anything like that, and you allow it to happen. Okay, and then it goes, as a result, for a period that afternoon, those defending the Capitol were in triage mode, trying to deal with the most violent element of those unlawfully present, holding those portions of the Capitol that had not yet been seized by rioters, and protecting those members of Congress and staffers who were still trapped in the Capitol. Chansley, piggybacking on Pezzola's violent breach of the Capitol, provides more than enough evidence of his corrupt intent to interfere with Congress that day. But there is much more evidence of his and others' conduct. The televised footage shows Chansley's movement only from approximately 2:56 p.m. to 3 p.m. Prior to that time, Chansley had, amongst other acts, breached a police line at 2:09 p.m. with the mob, entered the Capitol less than 1 minute behind Pezzola during the initial breach of the building, and faced off with members of the U.S. Capitol Police for more than 30 minutes in front of the Senate chamber doors, while elected officials, including the Vice President of the United States, were fleeing from the chamber. Chansley then entered the Senate gallery, where he proceeded to scream obscenities while other rioters rifled through the desks of U.S. senators on the floor below. All these actions were captured by Senate floor and/or CCTV cameras. In sum, Chansley was not some passive, chaperoned observer of events for the roughly hour that he was unlawfully inside the Capitol. He was part of the initial breach of the building. He confronted law enforcement for roughly 30 minutes just outside the Senate chamber. He gained access to the gallery of the Senate along with other members of the mob, obviously precluding any Senate business from occurring, and he gained access and later left the Senate floor only after law enforcement was able to arrive en masse to remove him. It is true that a sole officer who was trying to de-escalate the situation was with Chansley as he made his way to the Senate floor after initially breaching the chamber, as the televised footage reflects. But the televised footage fails to show that Chansley subsequently refused to be escorted out by this lone officer and instead left the Capitol only after additional officers arrived and forcibly escorted him out. In any event, Chansley's circumstances do nothing to mitigate Pezzola's criminal exposure. The trial record is replete with video, audio, and testimony proving Pezzola's egregious conduct on January 6th, which included viciously assaulting a Capitol police officer, forcibly taking an officer's riot shield, threatening other officers, using the shield to shatter a window, and then with Chansley engaging in a standoff with Capitol Police Inspector mere steps from the chamber. Pezzola's Brady argument is baseless. And I want to show you this, who's current leader of the MAGA Republican Party, Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is what she posted on her social media account on Twitter. She wrote, "Jacob Chansley deserves a retrial. All he did was nonviolently walk through the Capitol wearing a costume while being escorted by Capitol Police. I'm sick of the lies and double standard." I'm sick of the lies, Marjorie Taylor Greene. The American people are sick of the lies and gaslighting by you and the MAGA Republicans. It is beyond disgusting. It is beyond anything I could even comprehend that this is what the Republican Party has become today. Idolizing terrorists like Dominic Pezzola, the QAnon shaman. Those are your heroes. How low can you go? It is embarrassing. It is humiliating. And facts matter. That's why I spent the time reading that entire filing, so that you just know these are the facts. This is what takes place in court, not in the disinformation echo chambers of the modern day Republican Party. Disgusting. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We are on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your awesome support. Let's march to 1 million subscribers together this month. Just hit subscribe. It's free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. While you're at it, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We've got a lot of great content on our Patreon site, but most importantly, it helps grow this independent platform. So check us out on patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And also, wherever you get your audio podcast, just search MeidasTouch Podcast and subscribe there. Thank you all so much for watching this. All right, now subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Ben Meiselas. It's been great hanging out with you.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.